Hey there and welcome back. Whether you're here to unwind after a long day or your brain just won't hit the pause button, you've come to the right place. I've got my peaceful little Minecraft world up and running in the background, and today we're diving into knee-full hour of Reddit drama, revenge, and karma that'll have you thinking, wait, did that really just happen? There's something oddly satisfying about watching someone finally get what they deserve after months or years of acting like the main character in their own personal soap opera. And let's be honest, few things are more calming than justice served cold. Or petty. Real petty. Like vibrate your upstairs neighbor's apartment at 5 a.m. level petty. And it only gets better from here. We've got sibling betrayals, workplace takedowns, fake friends exposed, and at least one story involving food that will absolutely ruin your appetite for all the right reasons. So stick around because the chaos is just getting started. It started with a missing moisturizer. Now I know that sounds ridiculous, but not when it's that moisturizer. The one that costs more than a nice dinner and actually makes your skin feel like silk. I'd ordered it as a treat to myself after a rough few months, and I was counting down the days like a kid waiting for Christmas. But when the delivery notification came through, there was nothing at my door. No box, no note, no moisturizer. Just an empty porch and a suspicious sinking feeling. At first I figured it was a mistake. Maybe the delivery driver got the unit number wrong, or someone picked it up by accident and would drop it off any minute. It's happened before. People grab the wrong package and realize it later. No big deal, except it kept happening. Over the next 3 weeks, I lost a pair of wireless earbuds, a limited edition Lego set I bought for my nephew, and, most infuriatingly, my custom keyboard kit. That one stung. It had taken months to find the perfect layout and switches, and now it was just gone. Vanished from the front step like some kind of porch Bermuda Triangle. That's when I started noticing something odd. The guy in Unit 3B, mid-30s, always in athletic wear, despite never seeming to go to the gym, with that constantly wired energy like he drinks pre-workout, just to check the mail. He always seemed to be right there when I walked out of my unit. Too right there. Like he had ESP for Amazon trucks. Still, I didn't want to accuse someone without proof. That's not who I am. I don't go around starting neighbor wars based on vibes and missing moisturizers. So I got a camera. Tiny little thing. Wireless. I stuck it behind a potted plant on my balcony with a perfect view of my front door. It blended right in, looked like just another sad houseplant in desperate need of watering. I figured if something happened again, I'd finally know the truth. It didn't take long. 3 days later, I got a notification that a package had been delivered, a new phone charger. Just a $10 test run. I waited about 30 minutes, then checked the footage. There he was, 3B. Hoodie pulled low, glancing around like a cartoon burglar. He scooped up the box, stuffed it into his gym bag, and walked away, like it was the most natural thing in the world. No hesitation, no second guessing, just pure entitled confidence. I stared at the footage, jaw actually dropping a little. This dude wasn't just stealing, he'd clearly done it before. He moved like he expected to get away with it. Probably had. Probably stolen half the complex's online orders. I could have called the cops, reported it to the landlord, but let's be honest, the chances of anything actually happening? Slim. Even if they confronted him, he'd probably just deny it or claim it was a mistake. So I decided to get creative. The next day, I ordered another package. Only this one wasn't real. I carefully filled an old Amazon box with glitter. So much glitter. Rainbow, ultra fine, impossible to clean glitter. Then I rigged it with a spring-loaded party popper. As soon as the box opened, it would explode like a unicorn sneezed directly into his face. I left it right outside my door, in full view of the camera. It disappeared within the hour, and the footage, oh, it was beautiful. He opened it in the hallway. Thank God. The second he popped the flap, glitter detonated. It covered his shirt, his hair, his face. He staggered back like he'd been hit by pepper spray. Eyes wide, arms flailing, trying to wipe it off but only making it worse. He looked like a glitter-covered swamp creature, frozen mid-tantrum. I laughed for 5 solid minutes, but I wasn't done. Then came the breaking point. I started escalating. The next package was filled with those prank fart sprays, 4 of them taped to a trigger. When he opened it, they all went off at once in his apartment. The hallway reeked for 2 days. Someone even posted about it on our building group chat. Anyone else smell hot garbage mixed with feet on the third floor? After that, I did one with fake cockroaches, hundreds of them, rubber, but so realistic. I watched him swat at them like he was under siege, shrieking and kicking his gym bag across the hallway. At this point, I thought he might catch on, realize he was being baited, but nope. He just got more paranoid, more frantic. He started glancing up and down the hallway every time he stepped outside, like the walls might be watching him. Which, to be fair, they kind of were. The final straw was the cursed box. I went all out. Black box, painted sigils, ominous Latin phrases. Inside, a cheap voice recorder set to play, whispering voices and static when opened. Plus a smoke pellet and a paper with fake occult symbols and "Do Not Open" written in red ink. He ran screaming out of the building and didn't come back for 2 days. And when he did come back, he brought a priest, a literal priest, in full collar. I watched the whole thing from my peephole as the guy led him to his apartment and whispered something about needing a blessing and removing spirits. I don't know what he told him, but the priest did a walkthrough of the unit, murmured some prayers, sprinkled holy water, and left looking extremely confused. That was the moment I knew I'd won. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're officially hooked. Go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this madness. And trust me, it only gets weirder from here. Back to the glitter goblin. After that day, the package theft stopped. Like, completely. I even tested it. Left out a real package. No glitter bombs or smoke traps. It sat there for 3 days untouched. He never said a word to me. Never made eye contact. Just started avoiding me in the halls like I carried the plague. Good. Let him wonder if I was watching. Let him live in that paranoia. The funniest part? A week after the priest incident, he put up a camera outside his door. Guess he didn't like surprises. And look, was it petty? Maybe. But after losing hundreds of dollars in stolen stuff and dealing with weeks of silence and gaslighting from management, I think a little sparkle-based psychological warfare was exactly what the situation called for. Sometimes the best revenge isn't reporting someone, it's making them question reality itself. Wow. There's petty, and then there's called in a priest because you thought you were cursed by glitter, and a voice recorder. Petty. The sheer commitment is impressive. Honestly, this guy built his own downfall, one package at a time. And the best part? He still has no idea who orchestrated his glittery descent into madness. And just when you think that's as weird as neighbors can get, the next one takes roommate from hell to a whole new level. It started with a Netflix login. At first, I thought maybe I'd accidentally stayed logged in on the shared living room TV. No big deal, right? It happens. Except I hadn't logged into Netflix from that TV in months, and the name on the new profile wasn't mine. It said Jazzy. My roommate's name is Jasmine, but she never calls herself that. She's always Jazzy. Red flag number 1. Still, I tried to brush it off. Maybe she just guessed the password. Annoying? Yes, but not life-ruining. Turns out it wasn't just Netflix. Over the next 2 weeks, I started getting weird mail. Credit card offers in my name from banks I'd never contacted. I even got an email confirming an account for some streaming bundle I'd never heard of. That was my tipping point. I checked my credit report. 3 new accounts, all opened in the last month. One with a department store card, one with a digital services provider, and, get this, a buy now pay later setup for a set of Bluetooth speakers I never ordered. All with my name, my address, my birthday. I felt sick. Jazzy and I weren't close, but I never imagined she'd be capable of something this messed up. She moved in 3 months prior when I listed the spare room online after my previous roommate moved out. She seemed fun, a little too into astrology for my taste, but whatever. Rent was paid and she mostly kept to herself, but now I was realizing how little I actually knew about her and how much she clearly knew about me. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to. Believe me, I fantasized about kicking her door down and demanding answers. But I've seen enough true crime to know what happens when you tip your hand too early, so I started gathering evidence. I checked the shared Wi-Fi router logs. Her phone and laptop were connected constantly. Nothing strange there. But when I set up a dummy account with a unique password on a fake streaming site, guess whose device tried logging into it 20 minutes later? Caught. I screenshot every suspicious email. I called the companies and requested IP logs for the new accounts. I even called the bank that issued the store credit card and asked when it was opened. They confirmed it was applied for from my apartment's IP address. That's when it really hit me. She wasn't just freeloading on my Netflix. She was pretending to be me. And then came the breaking point. I walked into the kitchen one morning, and there she was, sitting at the table sipping coffee, on the phone with a customer service rep. I only caught a few words, but they made my skin crawl. Yes, that's the correct billing address. Yes, under my full name. No, I didn't receive the confirmation code yet. Could you resend it? She was using my name, out loud, right in front of me, like it was the most normal thing in the world. She smiled when she saw me, all cheerful and fake, like she wasn't actively stealing my life. I smiled back, but in my head, I was done playing nice. That night, I pulled the trigger. I drafted 2 anonymous emails, one to our landlord and one to the local tenant fraud unit. The landlord's was simple, just a tip that Jasmine had opened utilities and accounts under a different tenant's name, with attached screenshots of the fake service bills arriving at our address. The other email, that one had everything. All the IP logs, all the billing confirmation emails, a spreadsheet I'd made comparing my real accounts to the fake ones she'd opened. I even included a screenshot of a text she accidentally sent to me, meant for a friend, bragging about how easy it was to get free perks when you've got access to roommate data. And then I waited. 2 days later, the landlord called. Said someone had raised a serious concern about fraudulent use of the leaseholder's identity. He asked if I was aware of any suspicious behavior. I told him very calmly that I had also received strange bills in my name and had filed a fraud report already. He paused, then thanked me for being cooperative and said they'd be investigating. But that wasn't even the worst part. The following Monday, I came home to the sound of voices in the hallway, angry voices. It was Jazzy and the property manager, and, yep, 2 uniformed officers. Apparently, the investigation escalated fast. The fraud report I'd filed with the tenant hotline had been routed to the police department's financial crimes division. Between that and the landlord's report, they had enough cause to question her about identity theft. She was arguing, saying it was all a mistake, that she was being targeted. But I could see the panic behind her eyes. She wasn't acting like someone falsely accused. She was acting like someone caught. They let her pack a bag. She stormed past me without a word. But the look on her face, that was everything. And here's the best part. She still didn't know it was me. She thought someone else had reported her. The landlord, one of the neighbors. She even accused the woman downstairs of spying on her. I kept my mouth shut the whole time, just watched her spiral. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from one of the banks confirming that the fraudulent account had been closed and my credit would be restored. No lasting damage, just a note to keep monitoring for suspicious activity. Jazzy never came back for the rest of her things. A moving crew picked them up the following weekend while I was out. I changed every password, froze my credit, got a P.O. box for deliveries just in case. And then I ordered pizza, poured a glass of wine, and put on Netflix. Netflix. This one still makes me shake my head. The level of casual fraud here is mind-blowing. Like, imagine opening credit cards in someone's name while sipping coffee 10 feet away from them. The audacity is genuinely impressive, but you know what they say? Sometimes the best revenge is the one they never see coming. She thought she was getting free stuff. What she got was eviction, a fraud record, and a wake-up call from law enforcement. But that wasn't even the worst betrayal in this playlist. Wait until you hear how this boss destroyed an entire company's culture. When our company rolled out its brand new productivity dashboard, most of us rolled our eyes and just hoped it wouldn't crash our computers. The dashboard tracked everything: login times, email activity, project deadlines, file access, even how long you hovered over different tabs. It was like working under a microscope with a guilt trip baked into the code. But fine, we adapted. Everyone quietly agreed it was annoying, but whatever, we'd survive. Except Patricia. Oh, she loved it. Patricia was our department manager, self-proclaimed efficiency queen. She'd gone to some mid-level MBA program a decade ago and hadn't stopped talking about agile frameworks and scalable synergy since. If there was a way to make work sound more exhausting than it already was, she'd find it and turn it into a 30-slide PowerPoint. She was obsessed with being perceived as the smartest, hardest working person in the room. You couldn't finish a sentence without her interrupting to add a buzzword or correct you on something irrelevant. She never did actual work, you know, the kind with deliverables, but she talked a lot about how busy she was, especially via late night emails. Those emails were the first red flag. Patricia would regularly send messages at 11 p.m., 1 a.m., even 4 in the morning sometimes, always with some vague, just circling back or quick note before bed kind of message, CCing half the department. We'd wake up to these digital breadcrumbs of her alleged dedication and somehow feel like we weren't doing enough. But then I noticed something odd. Her emails were always weirdly well formatted, like too polished for someone supposedly writing them at 2 a.m. And occasionally a message would land in our inboxes time-stamped minutes apart, but worded like they were drafted hours apart. Something didn't add up. So I got curious, and I started digging. Now here's the thing. I wasn't trying to be petty, but I was exhausted. Patricia's micromanagement was sucking the life out of our team. She'd schedule last-minute meetings at 4:45 on Fridays, hold us hostage with vague lectures about strategic value, and publicly shame people who didn't hit arbitrary productivity goals that she invented based on the new dashboard. It was like being trapped in a corporate Hunger Games. So when I realized that the system tracked everyone's activity, including hers, I started taking notes. I had access to some reporting tools because I was part of the analytics team. Normally, I used them to pull stats on campaign performance or client engagement. But one day, I ran a sample report on department productivity, just out of curiosity. Patricia's numbers were enlightening. She spent 65% of her work hours in meetings that she scheduled herself. Her actual project contributions, like updating files, reviewing documents, submitting drafts, were less than a quarter of what junior team members were doing. And those late-night emails, most of them had been written during the day and scheduled to send at absurd hours. She was literally staging her own productivity. But that wasn't even the worst part. A few weeks later, she announced a new policy. She called it data-driven accountability. From now on, our bonuses and job security would be tied exclusively to the productivity dashboard metrics. She stood in front of the whole team, via Zoom of course, going on about how the numbers don't lie and real performers won't be afraid of transparency. And the whole time she was giving me and two other team leads these knowing looks, like she couldn't wait to use the data to cut us loose. That's when I snapped. You want to play the data game, Patricia? Fine, let's play. Over the next 2 weeks, I built a report, not just a casual summary, an audit. I pulled 6 months of performance data. I compared every team member's activity, output, efficiency scores, and billable hours. I included call logs, email timestamps, document revision histories, the whole digital trail. And Patricia? She was dead last in every single category. Except for one, time spent in meetings. She was number one there by a mile. Then came the breaking point. Patricia scheduled individual performance reviews with all department heads, and she clearly thought mine would be a hit job. She even brought in someone from HR to witness the conversation, probably hoping to build a case for letting me go. She started by going through my dashboard data, cherry-picking little things she could frame as concerning. I wasn't interacting with shared folders enough, apparently, or responding quickly enough to cross-department pings. I let her talk. Then I asked if I could present my own data. She looked smug, like she expected some panicked attempt at justification. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet. I walked them through every metric, every team member's productivity breakdown, contribution rates, efficiency versus effort, average task turnaround time. Patricia started fidgeting. Then I got to her. The scheduled emails, the low document access, the fake productivity spikes around performance review periods. I showed how her time allocation didn't align with actual deliverables, and how she consistently avoided project responsibility while taking credit for team results. I ended with a slide titled Leadership Efficiency Impact. It showed how her meeting-heavy management style cost the department over $30,000 per quarter in lost productivity. HR went quiet. Patricia tried to interrupt, but HR asked her to let me finish. I could practically hear her clenching her jaw through the screen. By the end, the mood had completely shifted. HR said they needed to escalate the report to upper leadership. The performance reviews were paused, And 3 days later, Patricia was suddenly on a leave of absence. She never came back. 2 weeks later, we got an internal memo. Patricia had been transitioned out of her role, and a new interim manager would be taking over. Our bonuses were restored, the meeting policy was revised, and the dashboard, it became optional. Honestly, poetic justice doesn't get much cleaner than that. She built a system to micromanage everyone else, and it exposed her instead. Her obsession with appearances ended up being the very thing that took her down. You can only fake productivity for so long before the receipts catch up with you. The best revenge is using their own system against them. And speaking of systems, this next story involves a wedding, a spreadsheet, and a sister-in-law's secret plan. There's a difference between being high maintenance and being high drama. And my sister-in-law, Claire, somehow managed to be both in the span of a single weekend. My wedding weekend. Now, I'd known Claire was a lot since the moment I met her. She's my husband's older sister, and from day one she made it pretty clear she didn't think I was good enough. Not in any specific way, just in the vague, passive-aggressive, paper-cut style of someone who thinks being petty is a personality. She once asked me if I planned on doing something about my eyebrows before the engagement shoot. Another time she suggested I take a voice coach to sound more polished for my vows. I wish I were kidding. So yeah, the bar was already underground by the time the wedding rolled around, but I was determined not to let her get to me. I had my dream dress, my dream venue, my dream playlist. I just wanted to marry the love of my life and maybe, get through one event without Claire turning it into a personal branding opportunity. That hope lasted exactly 17 minutes into the rehearsal dinner. That's when Claire decided to toast us, except it wasn't a toast, it was a roast. The kind that starts with a laugh and ends with a room full of uncomfortable silence. She made a joke about my quirky laugh that she hoped didn't get picked up by the videographer, and followed it up with a story about how my now husband used to have much better taste in women. Back in college. I'm not exaggerating. Everyone kind of chuckled awkwardly, and I just smiled through it, because I wasn't going to start drama the night before my wedding. Not over Claire, not when everything else was going so smoothly. But that wasn't even the worst part. The next morning, while I was getting ready with my bridal party, one of my friends, Jen, absolute hero, got a text from the DJ. He wanted to confirm the new playlist, the one Claire had sent over that morning. Apparently, she'd told him there was a last-minute change and that the bride wanted to go with a more refined, romantic vibe, which in Claire speak means everything I like and nothing that involves dancing. I checked the file she sent. It was an hour of acoustic love ballads and obscure jazz tracks that sounded like something out of a sad brunch. Now I could have flipped out, could have called her out, screamed into the bridal suite walls, made a scene. But I didn't. Instead, I texted the DJ back and said, "Stick to the original playlist. Trust me." Then I sent him the contact info of my cousin, who was also acting as my day of coordinator, and told him not to take any further direction unless it came from me or her. Crisis averted, but Claire wasn't done. Then came the breaking point. She showed up to the wedding in a floor-length off-white gown with a train. It was cream, technically. But let's be real, there's off-white and there's trying to upstage the bride white, and this was 100% the latter. She claimed she thought it was beige and that it looked darker online, but we all saw the look on her face when she stepped onto the venue patio. That smug little smirk as everyone turned to look. She knew exactly what she was doing. Still, I smiled. I posed for photos with her. I thanked her for being there, because I had a plan. I had a videographer friend, a genius with edits and timing, and I'd already asked him to capture casual footage throughout the day. Nothing formal, just candids, reactions, behind-the-scenes stuff. I told him to get everything. 3 weeks after the wedding, I posted our thank you video on social media. It started sweet, clips of us getting ready, saying our vows, our first dance. But midway through, the tone shifted, subtly. You'd hear Claire's voice off camera making a weird comment about the cake. Then a quick shot of her showing the DJ her new playlist. Then, oh so casually, a clip of her standing very obviously in front of me during the bouquet toss, looking straight into the camera in that dress. And the caption? "Thanks to everyone who made our wedding so special. And to those who tried to make it memorable, you succeeded too." The video blew up. Friends shared it. Friends of friends shared it. Someone posted it to a wedding drama subreddit. and it went semi-viral. The comments were savage. People roasted Claire's dress, her playlist sabotage, her tone-deaf toast. One person called it a masterclass in being a wedding villain. Claire lost it. She texted me at 1 a.m., demanding I take the video down because it was character assassination. I told her it wasn't about her. It was a video of our wedding day. If she didn't like how she came off, maybe she should take that up with herself. And that's when the family started turning. See, before the video, most people just assumed Claire was a little intense or misunderstood. But now they saw it. The evidence was right there on screen. Her smug little playlist stunt, her bridal adjacent gown, her toast that wasn't. No more benefit of the doubt. My mother-in-law called to apologize. My husband's cousins, who'd always been Team Claire, started messaging me saying they were so sorry and had no idea she was like that. The best part? She ended up uninvited from another family wedding later that year. The bride had seen the video and wasn't taking chances. Wow, Claire really pulled off the rare triple threat: playlist sabotage, public roast, and a white dress power move. That's not wedding guest energy, that's Bond villain energy. But sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the bad guy until the footage drops. And then, well, justice gets streamed in high definition. Sometimes revenge is digital, but other times it's liquid, flammable, and involves one very spicy dessert. Working in a restaurant kitchen is like surviving a war zone built entirely out of knives, grease fires, and passive aggression. And like any good battlefield, there's always that one guy. In our case, it was a server named Chad. Yes, really Chad. Now, Chad thought he was the main character of the entire restaurant. Slicked back hair, fake tan, that perma smirk that screams, "I peaked in high school." He walked around like he was doing the customers a personal favor by existing near their tables. But his worst crime wasn't his attitude or his tragic cologne choices. It was the fact that Chad couldn't stop eating off the plates. I'm not talking about finishing scraps or sneaking a fry here and there. No, I mean fork in hand, bold as brass, full bites, right in front of the line. He'd stroll back into the kitchen, swipe a chicken wing off a plate, nod like he was some Michelin food critic, and walk off chewing. Sometimes in front of the actual chefs. It was gross, it was disrespectful, and above all, it was costing us tips and complaints. Customers noticed when their plates looked half-eaten before they even touched them, and you better believe those reviews didn't fall on his shoulders. We'd all told him to stop. Nicely at first, then not so nicely. The head chef threatened him with HR once, but Chad just laughed it off and said, "Gotta make sure it's safe to eat, right?" Like he was doing us a favor. But that wasn't even the worst part. One Friday night, slammed dinner rush, I catch him eating a steak tip off a plate that had just been garnished. That plate was for a table of regulars, people who actually knew their food. I tried to stop him, but he just winked and walked off chewing, leaving a smear of sauce on the edge of the plate. The food runner had to replate in 40 seconds, and I had to explain to Chef why we were down another fillet. Again, that was it. I decided if Chad wanted to taste test our work so badly, then I'd prepare a little tasting menu just for him. And I knew exactly what his greedy hands would go for. The honey garlic chicken bites. Always a crowd favorite, always extra juicy, always sitting right near the edge of the pass. He never could resist those. So I made a batch. And then I made a special batch. One tray looked exactly like the real deal. Same glaze, same garnish, but underneath, a blend of ghost pepper extract, powdered Carolina Reaper, 2 drops of ultra-concentrated wasabi paste, and a little fermented fish sauce for that "what is happening to my mouth" effect. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I just plated it up, set it on the side of the pass with a "don't touch" sign that I knew Chad would read as "touch" immediately. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, I hear it. "Yo, you guys got extras of these bites?" Silence. I didn't even look up. I just kept chopping cilantro. Then I hear the chewing, then the coughing, then the gagging. He bolts for the walk-in fridge, practically shoulder-checking the dish pit on his way. I follow slowly, pretending I'm grabbing more scallions. When I open the door, he's doubled over in front of the fan, sweating like he ran a marathon in July. "What did you do to those?" He wheezes, eyes bloodshot, nose running. I shrugged. Oh, those? Yeah, probably shouldn't have eaten those. That was a private experiment for the specials board. He tries to say something else, but instead he just hiccups and lets out a little scream. I hand him a half-gallon of milk. Eventually he crawls out of the walk-in like a man returning from battle. He didn't steal from the line again after that. Then came the breaking point. He tried to complain to the head chef, swore I'd sabotaged him, like I'd spiked his drink or something. Except here's the thing, Chad wasn't supposed to be eating any of it. That sign didn't say free buffet, it said very clearly, don't touch. Chef looked him dead in the eye and said, maybe don't eat off customers' plates next time and you won't get your tongue melted off. Chad didn't have a comeback for that. He just slunk back onto the floor and tried to act like his face wasn't still red for the next hour. Within 2 weeks, he stopped taking shifts in the evenings, said he was more of a lunch vibe. A month later, he was gone. Told people he found something with better career potential. Pretty sure he just couldn't handle being in the same kitchen with people who now referred to him as Spicy Chad. Honestly, if you're going to be that bold, that cocky, and that disrespectful, sometimes you just need to get burned. Literally. The guy had been stealing bites like he was entitled to them, like we were just his personal buffet staff. But sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone exactly what they think they want, and letting them deal with the consequences. The lesson? Don't bite what you didn't pay for. But what happens when someone thinks your time is theirs to waste? You know that one coworker who always acts like their time is the most valuable thing in the world? That was Melissa. Melissa was our team lead, and she had a gift. No, a talent for scheduling what she called quick syncs, which in practice were anything but quick. These were 30 to 45-minute black holes disguised as meetings, with titles like urgent alignment or top-of-mind check-in, thrown on the calendar with zero notice, zero agenda, and exactly zero relevance to most of us attending. She'd pop them on your calendar mid-morning with a little face with smiling eyes, emoji in the invite like that made it cute. You'd be mid-focus, solving an actual problem, and boom. Quick sync at 11:15. You'd hop on and she'd spend 15 minutes circling back on something she could have slacked, then another 20 brainstorming, in circles until someone finally made an excuse to leave. I tried to be patient. We all did. We figured maybe she was just overly enthusiastic, or had some kind of quota to hit. But it quickly became clear, Melissa wasn't just annoying, she was a time thief in heels. The final straw for me was a Tuesday morning when I had an hour blocked off to prep for a client demo, something I'd been working on for 2 weeks. Right as I opened my slides to polish the flow, a new invite popped up. Quick pulse check, 10 a.m. No context, no explanation, just an interruption. I joined because not joining would get you side-eyed later. And what was it about? She wanted to touch base on team morale and run through last week's updates again. I wanted to scream. I ended up rushing through the demo prep and totally blanked on a key metric during the call. My manager didn't say anything, but I could tell she noticed. But that wasn't even the worst part. Melissa started scheduling double-booked meetings. She'd throw a touch base on our calendar, and then another one with a different group at the same time, then expect us to pop in and out of both, like this was some kind of corporate speed dating event. By this point, the whole team was on edge. I caught 2 coworkers messaging each other during one of her calls, literally placing bets on how long she'd talk before making an actual point. That's when I decided I'd had enough. If she wanted to waste time, then let's see how she liked having none of her own left to waste. I built a bot. Now, I work in dev operations. I'm no hacker, but I know my way around calendar APIs. I wrote a simple script, a bot that accepted every meeting invite she sent me, plus created overlapping decoy meetings for her, under the guise of automated alignment with fake team names. Each event was labeled in corporate buzzword soup: cross-functional action sync, pipeline visibility stand-up, agile strategy workshop. She didn't question them. She just started showing up to ghost meetings when no one else arrived. Then I tweaked the bot. It started blocking off her calendar every time she tried to create a new invite, preemptively filling her free slots with random overlapping events titled recurring sync, urgent client prep, or just private. Basically, a digital version of do, not disturb. Her week filled up like a game of Tetris played by someone in a blackout. Then came the breaking point. Upper management scheduled a very real, very important meeting with her to finalize next quarter's hiring plan. But because my bot had already double booked her, she missed it. Didn't even realize until someone from HR pinged her afterward like, "Hey, were you planning to join that call?" We waited 10 minutes. She blamed Outlook glitches, said her calendar was acting weird and things kept getting overwritten. IT poked around but couldn't find anything wrong. Meanwhile, I just sat there nodding sympathetically like, tech is wild these days, huh? And that hiring plan meeting? It went ahead without her. My manager stepped in to cover. She ended up getting tagged for the next project lead instead of Melissa. After that, things changed. The quick syncs started disappearing. No more surprise invites, no more double-booked chaos. It was like someone finally unplugged the vending machine of pointless meetings. The rest of us just got our time back. Melissa never figured out it was me. She still occasionally mutters about those calendar bugs from that quarter. Says she had to go full analog for a while and use a printed schedule. Like it was the system that failed her. Honestly, some people think being busy is a personality. Melissa weaponized calendar invites like they were her own personal battalion. But in the end, sometimes the only way to beat corporate chaos is with a little controlled sabotage. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's just giving someone enough rope and watching them accidentally tie their own Outlook noose. Time thieves beware. Up next, a story where someone tried to steal a car, but got outsmarted by a 16-year-old. I never thought I'd have to booby-trap my own car. It all started when my new upstairs neighbor moved in. Seemed nice enough, quiet, kept to herself, paid rent on time. But it didn't take long for her boyfriend to start showing up. And this guy? Pure walking red flag. He was the kind of guy who always looked like he was in the middle of a sketchy side hustle. Loud phone calls on the sidewalk, cheap cologne that lingered like a curse, and the most suspicious habit of checking out everyone's vehicles in the lot, like he was casing the joint. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid. Then I caught him near my car. It was 11 p.m. I'd gone out to grab something from my trunk when I saw him crouched next to the passenger side, holding something metal in his hand. He jumped when he saw me and gave the world's most awkward excuse, said he thought it was his car. Mind you, I drive a blue 2016 Subaru. He drives a black Jeep. Sure, dude. Super easy to confuse the two when you're holding a screwdriver. I told my neighbor about it the next morning. She rolled her eyes and said he was just a little high and probably confused. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Once. But the next week I came outside and found fresh scratches around my car door handle. There were marks near the ignition, like someone had tried to pop the column. I knew what that meant. Someone wasn't trying to break in. Someone was trying to steal it. And that's when I decided to play a little game. First, I bought a GPS tracker. Nothing fancy, just one I could tuck into the lining of the trunk. Then I bought a second tracker. A decoy. I attached the decoy in an obvious spot under the bumper, hoping he'd find it and think that was the only one. Next, I rigged a remote kill switch. A buddy of mine is a mechanic and he helped me install a relay under the hood that I could activate from my phone. The car would run fine until I flipped the switch. Then it would stall out like it had electrical issues. Totally dead. No warning. I parked the car in my usual spot and waited. Then came the breaking point. 3 days later, I woke up to a GPS ping. My actual tracker showed my car moving. Fast, down the freeway, at 6:12 in the morning. I pulled up the live map and just watched it go. He was actually doing it. The guy had stolen my car while I was sleeping, probably thinking he'd just ride off into the sunrise without consequences. I gave it 10 minutes. Then I hit the kill switch. The car stalled on a quiet stretch of highway outside town, right next to a traffic cam. He probably thought it was some weird engine issue, because the ping showed him pulling over to the shoulder. And that's when I called the cops. I gave them the tracker data, the make and model, the exact location. Told them I suspected a theft. I made it sound very calm and very routine. They thanked me and dispatched a cruiser. Then I watched in real time as the ping started frantically zigzagging, like he was trying to restart the car and couldn't. And then the dot stopped completely. About 20 minutes later, I got a call from the officer. They'd found the guy still in the driver's seat, sweating bullets, trying to explain how his girlfriend let him borrow it. Unfortunately for him, his girlfriend had zero claim to the car, and her story didn't match up either. He had no license, no registration, and oh, he had tools in the back seat. Lockpicks, screwdrivers, a shaved key, like he was auditioning for Grand Theft Auto, Suburban Edition. They arrested him on the spot, and my car, still fine, got towed back to me later that day with nothing but a dead battery and a smug sense of victory. Sometimes the best revenge is a game of patience. He thought he was slick, thought he'd found an easy target. But instead, he walked straight into a trap that he triggered himself. All I did was give him the rope. Honestly, if you're dumb enough to steal a car with a tracker during rush hour while high, yeah, enjoy your mugshot, my guy. Poetic justice behind the wheel. And now, let's talk about poetic justice behind the mic. I've always been the kind of person who doesn't mind doing the work, even if someone else gets the spotlight. Group projects in school? Sure, I'll carry the team. Coordinating a team pitch at work? Fine, I'll handle the deck. But there's a difference between taking the lead and getting stabbed in the back with a stolen PowerPoint. His name was Derek, and he was one of those guys who dressed like he was auditioning for a stock photo shoot. Clean blazer, smug smirk, way too much cologne. The kind of guy who adds synergy to every sentence and thinks LinkedIn is a personality. We'd been working together on a pitch for weeks, this huge presentation for an enterprise client that could land the company a major contract. Derek and I were both up for a promotion, and this pitch was a big deal. So I dove into research mode. Spreadsheets, case studies, customer insights, visuals, projections, you name it, I built it. Derek supervised, which meant he'd pop in every few days, drop a comment like, let's add more storytelling, or can we make this part more punchy? And then vanish again. But whatever, I wanted the team to succeed. So I didn't complain. The day before the big pitch, I sent the final version of the deck to the team folder. Locked, PDF'd, pristine. I was supposed to present it. I'd built it. Everyone knew that. Or so I thought. Then came the bait and switch. 10 minutes before the meeting, Derek pulls me aside in the hallway. Hey, just a heads up, he says super casual. I talked to Amanda earlier. She thinks I should lead the pitch since I've got more face time with the client. I blinked. You mean today's pitch? The one I've been prepping? Yeah, your stuff is great. I'll just deliver it. You know, to show leadership initiative, I was speechless. And somehow, everyone else was too busy setting up to notice what was happening. He walked into that conference room like he owned it, pulled up the deck, thanked everyone for being there, and started presenting my work like it was his masterpiece. And me? I just smiled, because Derek didn't know that the version in the team folder, that wasn't the real final version. And that's when the trap was sprung. The night before, something had told me to make a private copy, just in case. And in that version, I made a few adjustments. Minor things, really. A chart labeled Market Growth 2023 was replaced with a graphic of a shrinking banana. A data table had columns titled Synergy Coefficients, with numbers that added up to a negative ROI. And on slide 9, a fake quote from a senior analyst named Totally Not Real, MBA. I even changed one pie chart's legend to read lies, more lies, and things Derek says in meetings. He didn't notice, not once. And so there I sat, watching him walk straight into a professional minefield. But that wasn't even the worst part. Halfway through the presentation, the CEO narrowed her eyes and leaned forward. Sorry, Derek. What exactly is a synergy coefficient supposed to measure? He froze. She turned to me. Did you help build this? I gave the smallest shrug. I did contribute, but I'm not sure which version that is. There were a few drafts flying around last night. Translation, he pulled this, not me. Derek stumbled through a fake explanation involving AI, buzzwords, and a reference to cloud-based synergies. It was like watching a TED Talk written by a malfunctioning chatbot. By the end, the room was dead silent. Amanda, our manager, asked if we had any backup data to clarify the discrepancies. I politely offered to run through the real version I prepared if they had time, which they suddenly did. I gave the actual presentation, clean, polished, clear. Afterward, the CEO thanked me personally and said, "Now that was useful." Derek didn't say a word, just packed up his laptop and left the room so fast he nearly tripped over the cord. A week later, Derek was transitioned into a support role, which in corporate speak means exile to spreadsheet limbo until you get the hint. I got the promotion, along with a quiet thank you from Amanda for being professional under pressure. Honestly, I didn't even have to raise my voice. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon. Let someone else walk into the room thinking they're the star, and then watch them trip over their own ego. Because sometimes the best revenge is letting someone crash and burn with your work when they're too arrogant to check if the matches are already lit. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon, but what if the person stealing from you is your own sibling? When I was 17, I thought I was going to college on a cloud. My parents had been saving for years. Every holiday card with a check from grandma, straight into the education fund, every part-time job I worked in high school, a percentage tucked away. My dad even joked about it like a family tradition. We may not be rich, but we invest in brains. So imagine the shock when I got my acceptance letter and the money was gone. Not less than expected gone. Not tight budget, time to apply for scholarships, gone. I mean, wiped out. The account that was supposed to cover my first 2 years, emptied. At first, I thought there had been a mistake. I asked my mum gently. She hesitated, then blamed market fluctuations, something about a bad investment year, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. Then my brother walked in wearing designer sneakers, jingling the keys to his new car. Brand new, fully loaded, customized rims. And not just that, he'd just moved into a new apartment with his girlfriend, bragging about how he was finally out from under the parents' roof. I didn't put it together right away, until one night I overheard a fight between my parents in the kitchen. My mom was crying. My dad kept saying it was supposed to be for both of them. You let him lie to you. That's when it hit me. My older brother, Nick, had drained the fund. Turns out he'd convinced my mom to co-sign a withdrawal for emergency expenses after claiming he was in some kind of debt spiral. But instead of paying bills, he used it to bankroll his personal upgrade. And my parents, they let it slide. They gave me hugs, said we'd figure it out. But that was it. No apology, no accountability, no refund. I ended up going to community college for 2 years while working 3 part-time jobs. I don't regret it. It taught me grit, independence, how to juggle stress like a circus act. But the betrayal, that never went away. But that wasn't even the worst part. Nick knew. He knew what he'd done, and he loved that I had to eat it. At family dinners, he'd crack jokes like, "You always were the responsible one." He'd offer me advice on how to build credit or maybe take some online coding classes to get ahead. Every time I smiled and nodded like I wasn't quietly plotting. I didn't want revenge in the traditional sense. I wanted justice, the kind that doesn't need yelling or slashing tires. I wanted a win that would undo everything he took from me. And years later, that chance arrived. I'd finished my degree, built up experience in project management, and had just started browsing job boards when I saw it. His dream company was hiring. I recognized the name instantly. He used to talk about it like it was destiny. Some big-name startup meets tech conglomerate hybrid. They were opening a new branch in our city and needed a launch team. One of the roles, project lead, a perfect match for my resume. And the timing, even better. Because 2 days later, Nick posted a selfie with their company brochure on LinkedIn with the caption, "Manifesting this, fingers crossed for the final round." Oh, Nick. Sweet, delusional Nick. What he didn't know was that part of my work history involved digital auditing for corporate clients. I had receipts, literal PDFs. One of my test projects years ago was scanning my own records to practice building fraud profiles. And what did I find in my mom's old email? Authorization forms, fund withdrawals, bank statements, all signed by her and requested by him. So I applied. And in my application, I mentioned I had direct experience identifying and documenting financial misuse in small business environments. I included a portfolio item, an anonymized case study, but it wasn't actually anonymized. It was his story, his signature, his purchases, his betrayal, neatly packaged as a fraud pattern analysis. The company reached out in a day. We had 2 rounds of interviews, technical, then personal. The hiring manager was sharp, but what really hooked him was the case study. He asked if I'd ever worked with law enforcement on that situation. I said, no, it was a family matter, unfortunately. Then came the breaking point. I got the offer. I signed it on a Wednesday. On Friday, Nick called me. He didn't know yet. Not officially, but he'd heard through a friend of a friend that I got hired, that someone from our city had beaten him out at the final round. His voice was tight, strained. I could practically hear his ego unraveling. He said, hey, just curious, did you, apply to the same place I did? I said, oh yeah. I saw the listing and figured I'd shoot my shot. Why? Silence. Then, guess I'll just try again next quarter. I never told him what I included in my application. I never told my mom I found the receipts. I never told anyone that I spent 3 years waiting, not just to get even, but to rebuild everything. He tried to destroy. Sometimes revenge isn't about the grand gesture. Sometimes it's just showing up where someone thought you'd never belong and proving that you earned it without stealing a cent. And sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the pushover until you're the one signing the offer letter and they're left manifesting from the sidelines. The quiet ones are always the most dangerous, but this next one, it's pure chaos, family drama, fake apologies, and a mirror. Living with someone who steals your food is annoying. Living with someone who steals your food, lies about it, cries to avoid consequences, and somehow makes you feel like the villain for calling it out. That's psychological warfare with a side of missing leftovers. My roommate was Emma, childhood family friend turned accidental adult cohabitant. Our parents knew each other, so when we both ended up at the same college, it was like, wouldn't it be so cute if they roomed together? Cute is not the word I would use. At first, things were fine. Emma was bubbly, organized, the type of person who made Pinterest boards for birthday dinners. But after the first month, the cracks started to show. My snacks kept disappearing. At first, it was little things. A protein bar here, a yogurt there. Then it escalated. Half my weekly groceries would vanish overnight. I once found an empty ice cream tub in the trash, the same day. I bought it. When I asked Emma about it, she'd give me this wide-eyed look and say, oh no, I thought those were mine. I feel so bad. Then she'd sniffle and offer me half a granola bar like that fixed everything. She always had an excuse. I was emotional and forgot to label the milk. I wore your sweater because I missed my dog and it smelled like you. I didn't mean to finish the leftovers. I was just taste testing. And the kicker? Every time I tried to set a boundary, she'd cry. Like full performance, trembling lip, misty eyes, whispery voice saying she felt like a failure as a roommate and didn't want me to hate her. Then she'd disappear into the bathroom and take time to journal about her impact. And because I'm not a monster, I'd always back down. Until I started noticing a pattern. Every time I'd try to talk to her about something, she'd give the same speech, word for word, like rehearsed. But that wasn't even the worst part. One morning, I left my charger in the living room and walked back in to grab it. That's when I heard it. Emma was standing in front of our hallway mirror, practicing her apology. Okay, Emma, she said to herself, hands clasped over her chest, voice cracking, on cue. I totally understand why you'd feel hurt. This is just really triggering for me, and I've been doing shadow work. I froze. She had a script. I didn't say anything, just backed out quietly and decided right then I needed proof. So I did what any exhausted, gaslit roommate would do. I bought a camera. Nothing illegal, just a basic motion-activated one, placed on the shelf in the shared living room. It didn't capture private areas, just the common space. I even told her, hey, got a cam for the living room in case anything goes missing again. She nodded, overly cheerful, probably thinking I was bluffing. I was not. And oh boy, did it pay off. Then came the breaking point. One Saturday, I left the apartment for a few hours, leaving my groceries clearly labeled on the counter. Within 20 minutes, the camera caught her opening my oat milk, pouring it into her matcha, taking 2 of my snack bars, and sitting on the couch in my hoodie. Then, she walked over to the mirror, same angle, same speech. Only this time she tried 3 versions. I'm so sorry, I was dissociating and didn't realize it wasn't mine. Cut. She paused, started again. I just feel so disconnected lately. I think I was inner child eating, you know? Cut. Deep breath. Round 3. I totally take accountability, but this feels like a really unsafe dynamic for me. Boom. Oscar worthy. I downloaded the footage, saved it to a flash drive labeled Roommate Theatre Presents, and I waited. A week later, after another one of her oops moments, she messaged both our parents, because apparently we were 12 again, to schedule a roommate mediation since things had gotten toxic and unsafe. She accused me of being cold, controlling, and, my personal favorite, borderline abusive with food. So our parents join a video call. Emma comes in already sniffling. She has notes. I let her talk. Then I say, before we move forward, I'd like to share a clip. I played the footage, unedited, no commentary. 4 adults watched as Emma, thinking she was alone, rehearsed apologies like a bad soap actress, with my food and my hoodie in hand. The silence after? Delicious. My dad took off his glasses and muttered, "Wow." Emma's mom blinked like she'd just seen her daughter for the first time. "Is that recent?" Emma tried to fake cry, again, but the tears didn't come this time. I calmly explained that I wasn't trying to humiliate her, but I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore, that I'd paid rent, groceries, and peace of mind, and she owed me more than half-hearted lies and performance art. She moved out a week later. Wow, she really treated real life like a dress rehearsal. But sometimes the best thing you can do to someone who keeps playing the victim is show the audience the rehearsal footage. And sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation does make you look like the villain, until the mask slips and everyone sees the script. Some people fake being the victim, others fake being the hero, like this next guy who thought he could scam his way to praise. I've worked in tech long enough to know that not every programmer is ethical. Some will rewrite your function names and call it refactoring. Some will take your clean, well-documented code and bury it in spaghetti logic to make it look like theirs. But very few have the audacity to steal your entire machine learning model, slap their name on it, and present it to a client like it was a weekend side project. Unfortunately for me, I worked with one of those guys. His name was Ethan. On the surface, Ethan was charming, smooth talker, always had a clever comeback in meetings, and somehow managed to show up just in time to take credit for other people's work. He was the kind of coworker who'd breeze in late to a sprint review, nod sagely while you explained the product roadmap, and then repeat your last sentence as if it were his idea. But hey, tech has a lot of Ethans. I learned to keep my head down, get my work done, and document everything. That became important because I'd been developing a custom ML model for one of our major clients, a fraud detection system for their online payment platform. Months of work, clean inputs, dynamic thresholds, anomaly tracking, all custom built. I even added a clever little optimization loop that adjusted parameters in real time using traffic data. I was proud of it. And one day I walk into a strategy meeting and there's Ethan giving a slide presentation about my model, word for word, slide for slide. He changed the formatting, added a few new fonts, and removed my name from the Git logs. But everything else? Mine. I just sat there, stunned, while he demoed my work like he dreamed it up in the shower. And worse, the client loved it, clapped at the end, said they'd be back in 2 weeks for a live implementation review. I didn't say anything in the room. I smiled, nodded, said, "Great job, team," like I hadn't just been backstabbed with a stylized PowerPoint. Because if there's one thing you learn working with liars, it's that the best way to expose them is to let them lie in front of a camera. But that wasn't even the worst part. After the meeting, Ethan pulled me aside. "Hey," he said with that fake casual grin, "hope you didn't mind me taking the lead in there. It's all hands on deck, right?" "All hands," I repeated, smiling. "Besides," he added, "you're not really a presentation guy anyway." Cool. So now I was just the code monkey. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing, quietly. I rolled back the public branch of the code to an old version, one with a known bug that crashed the confidence scoring pipeline if certain inputs weren't handled. I left that version up, untouched, just sitting there waiting. Then I added a new branch, private, password protected, fully working model, labeled as sandbox, and I waited. Then came the breaking point. Demo day. The client shows up, on Zoom of course. There's a dozen people on the call. Ethan leads the intro with his usual flair, talks about our process, our iterative design, and our proprietary engine. Then he shares his screen and launches the model. He uses the broken branch. Of course he does. He has no idea there is a fixed one. He loads in a standard test case and runs it through. It works. Barely. The UI lags, but it works. Then one of the client reps says, "Cool, can you walk us through the back end a bit? Maybe tweak a variable and rerun?" You could see the confidence drain from Ethan's face. He opens the code window and freezes. The screen shows a sea of functions, parameters, nested conditionals. All of it documented, yes, but in my style. Custom variable names, internal references, even a comment at the top that says, "Still need to fix outlier weighting issue." He tries to stall. Says, well, it's kinda complex, and we don't typically expose this layer. The client's CTO chimes in, "Oh no, we're tech savvy. Go ahead." So he tries, changes one variable, runs it, and the model crashes. Terminal error. Unexpected value in scoring threshold. Everyone stares. Then the client's CTO, trying to be diplomatic, says, "Maybe someone else on the team can help walk us through?" I unmute. "Hey, happy to jump in." And I do. I switch screens, pull up the real model, show them the corrected version with a sandbox branch, rerun the input, show them how it catches fraud spikes in real time. I walk through the data pipeline, the confidence score logic, even show off a graph animation Ethan didn't know existed. The client is impressed. They thank me. Ethan sits there, muted, eyes darting like he's waiting for a trapdoor to open under his chair. That was the last time Ethan led a client demo. The next day, our team lead asked for a quick sync, where she gently asked who authored the model. I told her I could forward the Git logs, emails, and original sketches. She didn't even need them. A week later, Ethan was reassigned to internal tooling and removed from all client-facing work. And I got a bonus, a shout-out at the company all hands, and my name in the client's testimonial. Sometimes the best revenge is doing your job so well that when someone tries to steal it, they just end up publicly face-planting. And sometimes the cleanest takedown isn't a confrontation. It's a live demo, because if you give someone enough rope, they just might try to hang themselves in front of the client. He tried to steal brilliance and ended up face-planting on a live stream. And to close this lineup out, let's bring it full circle with a story about a neighbor who learned not to mess with someone's sleep schedule. I work 12-hour night shifts at the hospital 4 days a week. So when I say I value sleep, I don't mean I'm a little cranky without it. I mean, if you wake me up during my rest window, I might genuinely contemplate murder, and then go back to folding gauze like nothing happened. Unfortunately, my upstairs neighbor didn't share that value. He moved in about 6 months ago. Young guy, maybe late 20s, tech bro energy, friendly at first, until the first Thursday night party. It started at midnight. Loud EDM, strobe lights visible through the window, and some guy doing shots on the balcony. My bedroom is directly beneath said balcony. I didn't even bother asking him to turn it down that first night. Figured it was a one-off. It wasn't. The second time it happened, I went upstairs around 1 a.m. to ask him to keep it down. He opened the door with a Red Bull in one hand and a vape in the other, smiled and said, "Oh, dude, my bad. I didn't know you were home." I told him I was a night shift nurse, that my sleeping hours were from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and that if he could chill out with the late night bass drops, I'd really appreciate it. He promised. He even fist bumped me. And then it got worse. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because after a few more weeks, I realized he only toned things down when he thought he'd get caught. He started playing music through Bluetooth speakers on the floor, like he was trying to use my ceiling as his subwoofer. One time, I swear I felt my mattress vibrate. And every time I knocked or left a polite note, he'd apologize, and then turn it down just long enough to seem cooperative before cranking it again the next night. The audacity was breathtaking, so I stopped trying to reason with him, and I started building something instead. Here's the thing about living below someone: their floor is your ceiling. And if you've ever done any light reading on resonant frequencies and acoustic vibration, you know there's a sweet spot, a perfect pitch, that can make even the most solid floor feel like it's alive. I call it Operation 5 a.m. Earthquake. I bought an industrial-grade vibration motor, the kind they use to shake concrete mixers. Then I built a timer circuit that kicked it on for exactly 90 seconds, No more, no less, at 5 a.m. Sharp, I bolted the unit into the underside of my ceiling, directly beneath the center of his bedroom. It didn't make a loud noise. That would be obvious. This was different. It sent low-frequency tremors, just enough to wake someone up in a cold sweat, thinking there was a minor quake or a subway tunnel under their bed. And the best part? Totally untraceable. Then came the breaking point. Week 1, he posts on Instagram, "Why do I keep waking up feeling like I'm in a disaster movie?" Week 2, I overhear him telling someone on speakerphone, "Dude, I think the building's unstable." Week 3, a handwritten note appears on the hallway corkboard addressed to management, asking if anyone else has experienced intermittent structural vibrations. By week 4, he'd called the landlord twice. I only knew because the property manager emailed the whole building, asking if anyone had noticed odd building tremors. I replied with, "Nothing on my end. Maybe upstairs has a faulty appliance." That same week, he started going to bed earlier. I could hear it. The party stopped, the bass was gone, but I wasn't done. I kept the vibrations going for another 10 days. Same time, same duration, like a phantom haunting. I wanted him to dread sunrise. I wanted him to feel the exact frustration I did. Those tiny cumulative interruptions that chip away at your sanity until you're walking around like a sleep-deprived zombie. And then he moved out. No warning. Just a sudden U-Haul on a Saturday morning. He didn't even say goodbye. I watched through the blinds as he loaded his giant speakers into the back of the truck, hoodie pulled over his head like he was fleeing the scene of a supernatural crime. Wow. Imagine getting haunted by physics. Sometimes you don't need to scream. You don't need to file a noise complaint or wage a war of words. You just need a little patience and a motor, because sometimes karma doesn't knock. Sometimes it hums. We've seen chaos, revenge, and poetic justice tonight. Now let the calm take over. If you've made it all the way here, you're as hooked as I am. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, sometimes karma just needs a little engineering.